The alarm bells rang through the deep space monitoring station like angry metal birds. Admiral Lee Jinho jumped from his chair, spilling hot coffee across his desk. For 3 years, the station had floated in the empty space between stars, listening for signals that never came. Today was different. "Sir, we're getting something strange," called Dr. Park Minji from her workstation. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as waves of data flowed across her screens. "It's not like anything we've heard before." Jinho walked over to her station, his boots clicking on the metal floor. The monitoring station was small, only 50 people working in a tube of metal and glass that spun slowly through the darkness. They were humanity's ears in space, listening for radio waves, checking for asteroids, and watching for anything that might threaten Earth's growing colonies. "Play it," Jinho said. The speakers filled with a sound like crystal bells mixed with whale songs. It rose and fell in patterns that seemed almost like music, but there was something desperate about it. Something that made the hair on Jinho's arms stand up. "It's repeating," Minji said, her eyes wide. "Every 17 minutes, the same pattern. And Admiral, it's coming from the Theros system, about 40 light-years away." Captain Kim Daeho, commander of the heavy cruiser Soul's Pride that protected the station, leaned against the doorway. He was a big man with scars on his hands from the Martian War. "Could be equipment failure. Space does weird things to radio waves," but Minji shook her head. "No, sir. This is artificial. Someone made this signal. Someone who isn't human." The three of them stood in silence, listening to the strange music from the stars. Humanity had been in space for almost a century, but they had never found anyone else. Earth's scientists said life was probably common, but intelligence was rare. Maybe they were wrong. "How long to decode it?" Jinho asked. "I don't know. Maybe days, maybe weeks. This isn't like breaking a human code. I need to figure out how they think first." Jinho nodded. "Do it. And keep this quiet for now. If this is what I think it is, everything just changed." Minji worked for 3 days without sleeping much. She drank cup after cup of coffee and filled her screens with wave patterns and mathematical equations. The signal was complex, layered like music, with many instruments playing at once. But slowly, patterns began to emerge. "They use harmonic frequencies to represent concepts," she explained to Jinho on the 3rd day. Her hair was messy and her eyes were red, but she was excited. "Like, a rising tone means danger, falling tone means safety, and they stack them together to make complex ideas." "You're saying this is language?" "Not just language. It's their language. Admiral, these beings think in music. Their whole way of talking is based on sound harmonies." Jinho felt his chest tighten. First contact, the moment that would divide human history into before and after. "What are they saying?" Minji's face became serious. "It's a distress call. They're dying." She played the decoded message through the speakers. The computer had turned the musical language into words that appeared on the screen as a flat, emotionless voice read them aloud. "To any who can hear this signal, we are the Villani of Theros Prime. Our star grows angry, great fires burn in the sky, and kill our world. We have 72 of your day cycles before our home becomes death. We are peaceful people. We make beautiful things from crystal and metal. We sing to our children and tend our gardens. We mean no harm to anyone. Please, if someone hears this, we have 2.3 billion lives that will end when our star's anger touches our world. We send this message with hope that someone in the great dark cares about strangers." The message repeated, then continued with technical data about their location, their biology, their technology. The Villani were silicon-based life forms like living crystals that could think and feel. They had built a peaceful civilization for thousands of years, but their star was becoming unstable. Solar flares were already sterilizing parts of their world. "They're going to die," Minji whispered. Captain Daeho, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. "How do we know this isn't a trap? Maybe some hostile aliens want to draw our ships away from Earth." "Because of this," Minji said, playing another part of the signal. "They included detailed scans of their world, their biology, their technology, everything. They're showing us exactly how vulnerable they are. No one would fake being this helpless." Jinho stared at the data streaming across the screens. Star charts showing the Theros system. Pictures of crystal cities that looked like frozen music. Images of the Villani themselves, tall and graceful, with bodies that seemed to be made of living gemstones. They had shared everything about themselves with strangers, hoping someone would care enough to help. "Sir," Deho said carefully, "even if this is real, Theros is 40 light-years away. Our fastest ships would take months to get there. And we don't have anything big enough to evacuate 2.3 billion people." "I know," Jinho said, but he was thinking about his daughter back on Earth, and how he would want someone to help her if she was in danger. "Send the signal to Earth Command. Full priority. And prep a message drone." What message? Jinho thought for a moment. "Tell them we heard their call. Tell them we're coming." "Sir," Deho said, "we don't have authority to promise that. Then we better hope Command agrees with us." Minji worked through the night to translate Jinho's message into the Villani harmonic language. It was short and simple. "We hear you. Help is coming. Stay strong." As the message drone jumped into hyperspace toward the Theros system, Jinho stood in the observation deck, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, an entire civilization was counting down the hours to extinction. Crystal people who sang to their children and grew gardens were watching their sky fill with deadly radiation. The return message from Earth Command came 18 hours later. General Song Hunwoo's face appeared on the main screen, his expression grim. "Admiral Lee, you've started something that can't be stopped. The politicians are arguing, but the military knows what has to happen. We're mobilizing everything we have." "Sir? Operation Sanctuary is approved. We're going to save them, Jinho. All of them." As the transmission ended, Jinho felt the weight of history settling on his shoulders. Humanity was about to reveal itself to the galaxy, not as conquerors or explorers, but as the people who crossed 40 light-years to save strangers. In her lab, Dr. Minji continued monitoring the Villani signal. The harmonic patterns were becoming more desperate now, filled with the musical equivalent of tears. But mixed in with the desperation was something else: hope. The Villani had received humanity's message. For the first time in their history, they knew they were not alone in the universe. Captain Deho prepared his ship for the journey ahead. The Soul's Pride was tough and well-armed, but she was just one ship. This mission would require the entire human fleet, and even then it might not be enough. But as he watched the prep crews working through the night, loading supplies and checking weapons, Deho felt something he hadn't felt since the war ended: pride in being human. They were about to do something impossible, something that would cost lives and ships, and maybe even start a war with whoever was hunting the Villani, and they were going to do it anyway because 2.3 billion innocent people were going to die if they didn't try. The countdown had begun. 72 hours was now 68 hours, and somewhere in the dark between the stars, the largest rescue fleet in human history was starting to move. General Song Hyun-woo stood in the war room deep beneath Earth's surface, staring at a holographic map of the galaxy. Red dots marked human colonies scattered across 50 star systems. Green showed the peaceful trade routes between them. And, far out on the edge, a single yellow dot pulsed where the Villani were dying. "The Senate wants a committee," said Ambassador Choi Soon-ho, his voice tired. "They want to study the situation, form a first contact protocol, maybe send a small diplomatic mission in 6 months. In 6 months, there won't be anyone left to contact," Hyun-woo replied. He touched the hologram and zoomed in on the Theros system. "Show them the new intelligence." Commander Yu Jisoo stepped forward. She was small and quiet, the kind of person you might not notice in a crowd. That was why she led the Blackout Squadron, humanity's elite stealth reconnaissance unit. "We launched a probe as soon as we got the signal. It arrived in the Theros system 12 hours ago." The hologram changed, showing a yellow star surrounded by planets. One world was highlighted in blue, covered with crystal cities that sparkled like diamonds. "That's Theros Prime," Jisoo said. "Population confirmed at 2.3 billion Villani. The star is throwing massive solar flares every few hours. The planet's magnetic field is collapsing." "How long do they have?" asked Choi. 60 hours, maybe less, but that's not the worst part. Jisoo touched a control and new shapes appeared in the hologram. Dark, angular ships moving toward the planet like a school of metal sharks. Drakari Harvester Fleet, 47 ships, including 3 heavy dreadnoughts. Hyunwoo felt his jaw tighten. The Drakari were well known to human intelligence, though they'd never fought directly. A reptilian species that conquered worlds for their resources, using slave labor to strip mine entire planets. What do they want with a dying world? Crystals, Jisoo said. The Vellani cities are made from some kind of super pure crystal that's worth more than gold. The Drakari are waiting for the solar flares to kill everyone. Then they'll move in and harvest everything. Genocide, Choi whispered. Efficient business, Hyunwoo corrected grimly. No messy invasions, no resistance. Just wait for nature to do the dirty work, then pick up the pieces. He turned to face the room full of military officers and government officials. This is why we developed the Death World Doctrine. Several people shifted uncomfortably. The Death World Doctrine was classified, known only to top military leadership. Choi frowned. I've never heard of any such doctrine. Because you didn't need to know, Hyunwoo said. But now you do. He gestured to the hologram, and it changed, to show Earth, blue and green and beautiful. What do you see when you look at our home? A garden world, Choi said. Perfect for life. That's what most aliens would see, too. But they'd be wrong. The image of Earth changed, showing hurricanes swirling over the oceans, volcanoes erupting, earthquakes splitting the ground. Earth is a death world. The gravity is too high, the weather is too violent, the radiation levels are dangerous. Most aliens would die within hours of landing here. A new officer, Colonel Park Jae-sung, raised his hand. Sir, I don't understand how this relates to the current situation. It relates because we are what we are because of where we came from, Hyunwoo said. Every other intelligent species we've studied evolved on garden worlds, safe places with mild weather and few predators. They developed cooperation, art, philosophy. They're naturally peaceful because their worlds never forced them to fight. He paused, letting that sink in. Earth forced us to fight. Against the weather, against predators, against each other. We evolved to be killers because anything else would have died out. The galaxy sees us as dangerous Deathworlders because we are dangerous Deathworlders. Commander Yu Jisoo picked up the explanation. Our intelligence networks have been monitoring alien communications for 20 years. Do you want to know what they call us? The Terran threat, the violence bringers, the species that kills for territory. That's not fair, protested Dr. Kim Moon-jong, the government's chief science advisor. We've been peaceful for decades. No wars between human colonies, no aggressive expansion. Because we're still busy settling our own space, Hyunwoo said. But the galaxy doesn't see it that way. They see a species that went from first flight to interstellar travel in less than a century. They see us building warships instead of research vessels. They think we're getting ready to conquer them. Are we? Choi asked quietly. No, but they don't know that. And until now, we've been content to let them think what they want. Better to be feared than dismissed. Hyunwoo brought up a new display showing alien trade routes. All of them carefully avoided human space. The Death World Doctrine is simple. Use their fear of us to keep them away while we develop our technology and build our strength. But the Vellani change everything, Jisoo added. This isn't about human interests or human security. This is about 2.3 billion innocent people who are going to die while we debate first contact protocols. Hyunwoo nodded. The doctrine has a second part. The part that says maybe being the galaxy's monsters isn't such a bad thing. If it means we're the only ones willing to fight the real monsters. He gestured to the hologram showing the Drakari fleet. Everyone else in the galaxy will write off the Vellani as a tragic loss. Natural disaster. Nothing anyone could do. The Altarian. Council will send thoughts and prayers. The Trade Federation will observe a moment of silence. And then they'll buy crystal jewelry made from Vellani cities at the next Drakari trade fair. The room fell silent. Finally, Choi spoke up. What are you proposing, General? Operation Sanctuary. We mobilize every ship we have and go save them. All of them. That's impossible, Dr. Kim said. We don't have the ships. We don't have the transport capacity. We don't even know if our life support systems are compatible with their biology. We'll figure it out on the way, Hyunwoo said. Engineer Lim Soo-young's team has been studying the Villani data. She thinks she can modify our cargo ships to carry them safely. Colonel Park looked confused. Sir, even if we could evacuate them, where would we take them? They can't live on human worlds, and we don't have any uninhabited planets ready for colonization. We'll find somewhere. The galaxy is big. And the Drakari? Choi asked. What happens when we run into their fleet? Hyunwoo's smile was cold. Then the galaxy learns why everyone's been afraid of us. Commander Jisoo activated another display. Every human colony is contributing ships, military vessels, civilian transports, private freighters. Even the mining companies are sending bulk. Haulers, it's the largest fleet humanity has ever assembled. How many ships? Asked Park. 312 at last count, and more joining every hour. Choi stared at the numbers. This will bankrupt half our colonies. The fuel costs alone. Worth it, Hyunwoo said simply. Some things are more important than money. The Senate will never approve this. The Senate doesn't get a vote. Emergency powers, alien contact protocols. This is a military decision now. Dr. Kim shook her head. General, I understand the moral argument, but this is incredibly risky. We're revealing our capabilities to the entire galaxy, picking a fight, with a major alien power and spending resources we can't afford, all for people we've never met. Yes, Hyunwoo said. That's exactly what we're doing. Why? Hyunwoo was quiet for a long moment, thinking about his grandson back on Earth, playing in gardens that bloomed because humans had learned to fight for what they loved. Because someone has to. Because if we don't, who will? The galaxy is full of species that will stand by and watch 2.3 billion people die because it's not their problem. He turned to face the room. Maybe being Deathworlders means we're the only ones who understand that sometimes you have to fight to protect people who can't protect themselves. Maybe that's why Earth made us the way we are. Commander Jisoo checked her chronometer. Sir, the fleet is assembling at Luna Station. Admiral Baek Tae-hyun is requesting permission to begin the jump sequence. Granted, Hyunwoo said without hesitation. As the meeting broke up, Choi approached the general privately. Song, this could start a war. If we attack the Drakari fleet, then we'll finish it, Hyunwoo replied. The galaxy thinks we're monsters anyway. Might as well be monsters with a purpose. Outside the war room, news of Operation Sanctuary was spreading through human space. On every colony, volunteers were signing up faster than ships could carry them. Engineers worked around the clock to retrofit civilian vessels for alien passengers. Doctors studied Villani biology to prepare medical supplies. And in the deep darkness between the stars, the largest rescue fleet in galactic history began its journey toward a dying world, carrying with it humanity's hope that being feared by the galaxy might be worth it, if it meant they could save the innocent. Captain O. Subin had never seen so many ships in one place. The medical vessel Hippocrates floated in the center of humanity's rescue fleet, surrounded by 312 other ships, stretching out until they disappeared into the darkness. Massive dreadnoughts built for war flew alongside tiny civilian shuttles retrofitted with rescue pods. Cargo haulers designed to carry minerals now held life support systems for silicon-based aliens. It's beautiful, said her medical officer, Dr. Ahn Young-ho, staring out the viewport. Terrifying, but beautiful. Subin nodded. The fleet was heading toward the Theros system at maximum speed, but it would still take 3 days to reach the dying world. 3 days to prepare for the largest evacuation in galactic history. 3 days to figure out how to save 2.3 billion aliens they had never met. Status report, she called to her bridge crew. Medical bays are ready for Villani physiology, reported nurse coordinator Kim Ji-won. Dr. Park Min-ji's translations helped us understand their biology. They don't need oxygen like we do, but they require specific mineral solutions to maintain their crystal structure. Life support modifications are complete on 230 ships, added Chief Engineer Lim Soo-young, her voice coming through the comm system from the engine room. We're converting cargo holds into environments that can sustain Villani survivors. It's not comfortable, but it'll keep them alive. Subin felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. She was in charge of coordinating the medical and humanitarian aspects of the rescue. If they succeeded, she would be remembered as the woman who helped save an entire species. If they failed, billions would die while she watched. Her comm unit crackled to life. All ships. This is Admiral Baek Tae-hyun. Prepare for intelligence briefing. The main screen lit up with the Admiral's face. He was an older man with gray hair and calm eyes, but Subin could see the tension in his jaw. Behind him, tactical displays showed the Theros system growing closer. We've received updated reconnaissance from Commander Yoo Ji-soo's advance team, Tae-hyun said. The situation is worse than we thought. The screen changed to show images from the Theros system. The planet looked like a blue and silver jewel, covered with crystal cities that sparkled in the light of their angry sun. But dark spots were spreading across the surface where solar radiation had already sterilized large areas. The Drakari fleet has moved into orbit, the Admiral continued. They're not waiting for the Volani to die naturally anymore. They've begun bombardment of the major cities. Angry voices erupted from ship captains across the fleet. Captain Kim, Daeho's voice cut through the noise. They're murdering civilians for mining rights? It appears so, Tae-hyun replied grimly. Intelligence suggests they want to speed up the process. Every hour they wait means more crystal cities might be damaged by the solar flares. On the Hippocrates Bridge, Sergeant Kang Min-ho stepped forward. He was the leader of the Marine unit assigned to protect medical personnel during the evacuation. Sir, what's our tactical situation? Can we fight the Drakari fleet? They have 47 ships, including heavy dreadnoughts with superior firepower, Tae-hyun said. We have more ships, but most of ours are civilian vessels with minimal weapons. In a straight fight, we'd lose. So what's the plan? Asked Captain Han Yeon-jong from the battlecruiser Seoul's Thunder. We split the fleet, Tae-hyun said. Half our military ships will engage the Drakari and try to draw them away from the planet. The other half will escort our civilian vessels. Down to begin immediate evacuation. We save who we can while we can. Subin felt her chest tighten. Admiral, how many can we realistically evacuate if we're under fire? Tae-hyun was quiet for a moment. Best case scenario, with perfect coordination and no major losses, maybe 500 million? The silence that followed was deafening. 500 million saved meant 1.8 billion would die. The mathematics of genocide were simple and horrible. There has to be another way, said Engineer Lim Soo-young over the comm. If you think of one, let me know, Tae-hyun replied. But right now, we save who we can and make the Drakari pay for every life they take. As the briefing ended, Subin gathered her medical team in the main conference room. Dr. An looked exhausted already, and they hadn't even reached the battle zone. Nurse Kim was reviewing Volani biological data for the 100th time. Medical. Technician Park Dong-yun was checking supplies that might help treat radiation poisoning in silicon-based life forms. I know the numbers look impossible, Subin said, but we're going to do everything we can. Every Volani we save is a victory. Ma'am, said Dr. An, we've been studying the planet scans. The Volani don't just live in cities. They have millions of small communities scattered across the planet. Even if we could evacuate all the major population centers, we'd be leaving behind tens of millions in rural areas. Subin closed her eyes. The scope of the disaster was beyond anything humans had ever faced. We do what we can. We save who we can. And we hope that someday, the ones we save will forgive us for the ones we couldn't. In the depths of the fleet, pilot Nam Yunbi was preparing her fighter squadron for what would probably be the most important mission of their lives. Her ship, the Shooting Star, was small and fast, designed for hit-and-run attacks against larger vessels. Perfect for protecting evacuation shuttles from Drakari interceptors. Listen up, she told her 12 pilots over the squadron channel. We're not going to win this fight through superior firepower. The Drakari ships are bigger, tougher, and have more guns. But they're also slow and predictable. So what's the plan, Captain? Asked Lieutenant Lee Hyung-jae. We be human, Yunbi said simply. We do things they don't expect. We take risks they wouldn't take. We fly patterns that would terrify any sane pilot. And we keep those evacuation shuttles safe no matter what it costs. She paused, looking at the faces of her pilots on the screen. Most of them were young, barely out of training. They had signed up to defend human colonies, not to die protecting aliens they had never met. But she could see determination in their eyes. Humanity was about to reveal itself to the galaxy, and they wanted to make sure the galaxy remembered them as heroes, not monsters. Ma'am, said Lieutenant Song Youngman, what if we can't save them all? Then we make sure the galaxy remembers that we tried, Yunbi replied. And we make the Drakari pay such a high price that they think twice before they ever do this again. Back on the Hippocrates, engineer Lim Soo-young was working miracles in the cargo holds. She had converted the massive storage areas into temporary habitats for Villani refugees, complete with the mineral baths they needed to survive and communication. Systems that could translate their harmonic language. It's not perfect, she explained to Captain Subin as they walked through the converted areas. But each hold can support about 10,000 Villani for several weeks, long enough to get them to safety. Where is safety? Subin asked. Even if we evacuate them successfully, where can they go? They need specific environmental conditions to survive. I've been thinking about that, Soo-young said. There's a system about 30 light-years from here with several uninhabited worlds. One of them has the right mineral composition and stellar radiation levels. We could establish a temporary colony there while we look for a permanent solution. Subin nodded, but she was thinking about the logistics. Food production, housing, medical care for an entire species suddenly displaced from their home. It would take years to establish a functioning society, and they would need help from other species. The galaxy is about to learn what humans are. Really like, she murmured. Yes, Soo-young agreed. The question is whether they'll like what they see. As the fleet approached the edge of the Theros system, tension filled every ship. Rescue Coordinator Yong Ki-ho was in constant communication with civilian vessels, making sure everyone understood their assignments. The massive cargo haulers would land first to begin mass evacuations. Smaller shuttles would handle remote communities. Medical ships would treat the wounded and radiation sick. All civilian vessels. This is Coordinator Jung, he broadcast. Remember, we go in fast and we get out fast. The Drakari won't hesitate to fire on rescue ships. Stay close to your military escorts and follow evacuation protocols exactly. On Icy, the Soul's Thunder, Captain Han Yeonjong was preparing her crew for battle. They think we're just another young species that got lucky with technology, she told her weapons officers. Let's show them what Deathworlders can do when we're fighting for something that matters. The countdown reached its final minutes. Across the fleet, hundreds of thousands of humans prepared to risk their lives for aliens they had never met. They came from different colonies, different backgrounds, different beliefs, but they were united by the simple idea that innocent people shouldn't die while others stood by and watched. All ships, Admiral Tae-hyun's voice echoed through the fleet. We are about to do something that has never been done before. We are about to reveal humanity to the galaxy. Let's make sure they remember us as the species that crossed the stars to save strangers. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Theros system. Ahead of them, a blue and silver world hung in space, surrounded by dark Drakari, ships like vultures around a dying animal. Solar flares erupted from the system's star, sending deadly radiation toward the helpless planet below. Admiral Baek Tae-hyun watched the tactical display as the human fleet spread across the Theros system like an angry swarm of metal wasps. The Drakari had detected their arrival and were moving to intercept, their massive ships turning with the slow grace of space predators who had never faced real opposition. Sir, incoming transmission from the Drakari flagship, reported Communications Officer Lee Soo-young. Put it through. The main screen flickered to life, showing a reptilian face. With yellow eyes and rows of sharp teeth, the Drakari commander spoke in heavily accented human language, his voice full of amusement. Unknown human fleet, you are trespassing in a Drakari harvesting zone. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. We have no quarrel with your young species. Tae-hyun stood slowly, his face calm but his eyes hard as steel. This is Admiral Baek Tae-hyun of the Human Protection Fleet. You are committing genocide against a peaceful species. Withdraw your forces immediately. The Drakari commander laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. Protection Fleet? Humans. You have 30 ships capable of real combat. We have 47 warships, including 3 dreadnoughts. Your little rescue mission ends here. You're right, Tae-hyun said quietly. We do only have 30 real warships. But you're wrong about one thing. What's that, human? This rescue mission is just getting started. Tae-hyun cut the transmission and turned to his tactical officer. Execute hammer and shield. All civilian vessels begin immediate planetary approach. Combat ships, engage the enemy. What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for generations. The human fleet split like a living thing, half diving toward the planet while the other half charged directly at the Drakari formation. It was tactically insane, strategically impossible, and completely human. Pilot Nam Yunbi led her fighter squadron in the first attack wave, her small ship dancing between massive Drakari cruisers like a hummingbird among elephants. All fighters, remember your training. We're not trying to destroy their ships, we're trying to confuse them. Her fighters scattered in all directions, firing missiles and energy blasts at seemingly random targets. The Drakari point defense systems couldn't track the chaotic attack patterns, and explosions began blooming across their hulls. Impossible, muttered the Drakari commander, watching human fighters perform maneuvers that should have killed their pilots. No species flies like that. He was right. No other species flew like that because no other species had evolved on a world where split-second reflexes meant the difference between life and death. Human pilots could handle acceleration forces that would crush most aliens, and their brains processed three-dimensional combat in ways that confused enemy targeting computers. Captain Han Yeonjong brought her battlecruiser Seoul's Thunder into knife-fighting range with a Drakari heavy cruiser, her ship's armor sparking under enemy fire. All weapons, concentrate fire on their engine section. Let's see how they like being stranded. The Thunder's missiles slammed into the Drakari ship's rear section, crippling its propulsion. But instead of withdrawing to a safe distance like any sensible commander, Yeonjong ordered her ship closer. "Captain, what are you doing?" her tactical officer asked. "Something they won't expect," she replied. "Ramming speed." The Seoul's Thunder accelerated directly toward the damaged Drakari cruiser, her armored prow aimed at the enemy ship's command section. At the last second, Yeonjong's crew fired their emergency thrusters, spinning the Thunder aside while launching every missile they had at point-blank range. The Drakari ship exploded in a ball of superheated plasma, but the real miracle was happening on the planet's surface. While the space battle raged overhead, human rescue teams were landing in crystal cities under fire, their shuttles weaving between Drakari bombardment beams like leaves in a storm. Rescue Coordinator Young Kiho's voice crackled over the communication network. "Alpha Team, evacuate the northern Crystal Gardens." "Bravo, Team! Focus on the underwater cities. Charlie Team, get those civilians out of the radiation zones now!" The Vellani were unlike anything humans had ever seen. They stood 12 feet tall with bodies that seemed to be carved from living diamonds, their movements graceful and their voices like singing crystals. When they spoke, their entire bodies resonated with harmonic frequencies that made human bones vibrate. But they were also terrified, confused, and dying. The solar radiation was causing their crystal structures to crack and dim. Many were already too weak to move. Sergeant Kong Minho landed his rescue shuttle in the center of a Vellani city just as a Drakari bombardment beam sliced through a nearby crystal spire. "Move, move, move!" he shouted to his team. "We've got maybe 10 minutes before they target this area again." His Marines spread out through the crystal streets, their powered armor allowing them to carry Vellani civilians who were too weak to walk. The aliens were surprisingly light, despite their size, their crystalline bodies designed for a world with lower gravity than Earth. "Please," said a Vellani elder, her voice translating through the human communication systems as pure musical tones. "Our younglings are in the deep chambers. They cannot survive the surface radiation." Minho didn't hesitate. "Show us the way." What followed was a desperate race through underground crystal tunnels, while Drakari bombardment shook the city above them. Human Marines in bulky armor squeezed through passages designed for graceful crystalline beings, carrying Vellani children whose bodies flickered with weak light. "Sir," called Corporal Shin Minsu over the radio, "the tunnel entrance just collapsed. We're trapped down here with about 50 civilians." "How much air do they have?" Minho asked. "Unknown. Their biology is different, but some of them are already growing dim." Minho made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. "Plant charges on the wall. We'll blow our way out." "Sir, the explosion might bring down the whole tunnel system. Then we better work fast." The explosion tore through the crystal wall like thunder, sending rainbow fragments flying in all directions. Emergency lights flickered as the tunnel system groaned under the stress. But it held, and suddenly there was a way out. "Go, go, go!" Minho shouted, pushing Volani civilians toward the exit while the ceiling cracked overhead. They made it out, with seconds to spare, emerging into daylight just as the entire underground complex collapsed. 50 Volani lives saved, but Minho knew there were thousands more they couldn't reach. Above them, the space battle was reaching its climax. The human fleet had lost 8 ships, but they had disabled or destroyed 15 Drakari vessels using tactics that defied all conventional wisdom. Human captains were using their own ships as weapons, ramming enemy vessels or detonating their reactors to take out multiple targets. "This is insane," the Drakari commander snarled, watching another of his cruisers fall to a coordinated human fighter attack. "They fight like they don't care if they die." He was partially right. Humans did fight differently than other species. Earth had taught them that survival sometimes required accepting terrible risks. They had learned to face death without flinching, because the alternative was often worse than death. But he was also wrong. Humans cared very much about dying. They just cared more about protecting innocent people. Captain O. Subin was coordinating medical treatment for thousands of Volani refugees aboard the Hippocrates when the ship shuddered under weapons fire. A Drakari destroyer had broken through the defensive screen and was targeting the medical vessel. "All patients to emergency positions," she announced over the ship's speakers. "Prepare for combat maneuvers." The Hippocrates wasn't built for fighting, but her crew was human. Chief Engineer Lim Soo-young diverted power from life support to the engines, while Dr. An Young-ho continued treating radiation-poisoned Volani, even as the ship rolled and twisted to avoid enemy fire. "Captain," called pilot Lee Young-kyung from the bridge, "I've got an idea, but you're not going to like it." "Tell me." "We use the ship's medical waste disposal system as a weapons platform, load it with surgical instruments and metal debris. Then, launch it at high velocity toward the Drakari ship. It was ridiculous, improvised, and completely desperate. It was also perfectly human." "Do it," Subin ordered. Minutes later, the Drakari destroyer found itself being pelted with surgical tools, bedpans, and broken medical equipment, traveling at significant fractions of the speed of light. The makeshift weapons couldn't penetrate the ship's armor, but they confused the targeting systems long enough for a human fighter squadron to arrive and drive off the attacker. As the battle raged on, something unprecedented began happening across the Theros system. The Volani, seeing humans risk their lives to save complete strangers, began to help their own rescue. Despite the radiation and bombardment, Crystal engineers emerged from hiding to guide human teams to refugee centers. Volani pilots who had never seen combat began using their own ships to ferry civilians to human rescue vessels. And in the deep space monitoring stations scattered across the galaxy, dozens of alien civilizations watched in shock as humanity revealed its true nature to the universe. They had expected the humans to be defeated quickly by the superior Drakari fleet. Instead, they were witnessing the most tactically creative and strategically insane rescue operation in galactic history. Admiral Taehyun stood on his bridge, watching the tactical display as the evacuation convoy stretched across 3 star systems like a river of metal and hope. 217 human ships, most of them damaged, carried 1.2 billion Volani refugees toward an uncertain future. Behind them, Theros Prime burned, under the radiation of its dying star, while Drakari scavenger teams picked through the ruins of crystal cities. Dr. Ha Yonho floated in the zero-gravity laboratory aboard the research vessel Discovery, surrounded by holographic displays showing potential worlds where the Volani might survive. As humanity's leading expert on planetary environments, she had the impossible task of finding a new home for an entire species. "The mineral composition has to be perfect," she explained to her Volani colleague, a scientist whose translated name was Harmony Across Waters. "Too much iron in the soil and your people's crystal structures will become brittle, too little silicon and you won't be able to reproduce." Harmony Across Waters resonated with musical tones that the translation computer rendered as worried concern. "Dr. Ha, our people are already showing signs of structural degradation from being away from our homeworld. How long can we survive in your ships?" "Honestly, I don't know. Engineer Lim's modifications are keeping you alive, but they're not designed for long-term habitation." Yanho pulled up a star chart showing systems within reasonable travel distance. "We've identified 12 possible worlds, but we need to Survey them properly before we can relocate your people. And what if none of them are suitable? Yonho looked at her alien colleague, seeing fear flickering in the crystal formations that served as Harmony's face. Then we keep looking. We don't give up. But even as she said it, Yonho knew the reality was grim. The Villani were dying slowly. In human ships, their crystal bodies unable to process the mineral solutions they needed for long-term survival. They had maybe 3 months before the refugees would start succumbing to biological failure. On the bridge of the heavy cruiser Soul's Vengeance, Commander Shin Jamin studied the tactical display showing the Drakari pursuit fleet. 47 ships, including some of their newest and fastest vessels, were gaining on the human convoy. "Sir," reported his tactical officer, Lieutenant Park Seoha, "the Drakari fleet will intercept us in 18 hours. They're demanding we turn over the Villani refugees for processing." "Processing means slavery," Jamin said grimly. "Any Villani who survive will spend the rest of their lives as crystal miners for the Drakari Empire." The commander turned to address his crew. Most of them looked exhausted after the desperate fighting at Theros Prime. His ship had taken heavy damage, with 2 of its main weapons offline and hull breaches sealed with emergency patches. "I know you're all tired," he said. "I know you want to go home, but those people behind us are counting on us to keep them safe, so we're going to give the Drakari something to think about." What followed was a running battle across multiple star systems that would become legendary in military history. Commander Jamin's rear guard used every trick in the human tactical manual, turning asteroid fields into battlegrounds and nebulae, into hiding places. "Remember," Jamin told his ship captains over the fleet channel, "we're not trying to win a decisive victory. We're buying time for the convoy to find safety. Make them pay for every light year they advance." The Drakari had superior firepower and numbers, but they had never faced human persistence. Every time they thought they had cornered the rear guard, the human ships would scatter in directions that seemed impossible, using gravitational slingshots around planets and flying through debris fields that should have torn their ships apart. Captain Ko Ji-won commanded the destroyer Busan's Fury, one of the smallest ships in the rear guard. When 3 Drakari cruisers cornered her ship near a gas giant, she made a decision that violated every safety protocol in the human fleet manual. "All power to engines," she ordered. "We're going into the planet's atmosphere." "Ma'am," protested her helmsman, "the atmospheric pressure will crush our hull." "Not if we don't stay long," Ji-won replied. "Bring us down to just above the cloud layer, then emergency surface along the planet's magnetic field lines." The Busan's Fury dove into the gas giant's atmosphere like a stone, her hull groaning under the immense pressure. The Drakari ships followed, their heavier construction better suited for atmospheric flight. But Ji-won had counted on their confidence. "Now," she commanded, "emergency ascent, full acceleration." Her ship shot out of the atmosphere just as the planet's powerful magnetic field interacted with the gas giant's metallic core, creating an electromagnetic pulse that disabled the Drakari ship's targeting systems. The Busan's Fury escaped while her enemies were blind and confused, but the victories came at a terrible cost. Human ships were being lost faster than they could be replaced, and crews were pushed beyond their limits. On the medical ship Hippocrates, Captain Oh Subin watched her crew work 18-hour shifts, treating both human casualties and Villani refugees suffering from environmental degradation. "We're losing people," Dr. An Young-ho reported during the daily medical briefing. "The Villani condition is deteriorating faster than we expected, and our own people are showing signs of severe stress and exhaustion." Subin nodded, looking at the casualty report scrolling across her screen. 31 human ships destroyed, over 8,000 personnel dead or missing. The rescue of the Villani was costing humanity dearly. "Any word from Dr. Ha's survey teams?" she asked. 3 of the potential worlds have been ruled out. Wrong atmospheric composition, unsuitable geology, or already inhabited by hostile species. She's down to 9 possibilities. As they spoke, Dr. Ha's team was investigating a promising system 40 light years from their current position. The survey probe had found a world with the right mineral composition and stellar radiation levels. But there was a problem. "It's already inhabited," Ha reported to Admiral Tae-hyun over the long-range communication system. "Not by an intelligent species, but by crystalline life forms. that might compete with the Villani for resources. Could they coexist? Unknown. We'd need months of study to determine compatibility. And sir, we don't have months. Taehyun understood. The convoy was running out of supplies, the Villani were dying slowly, and the Drakari were gaining on them. They needed a solution soon, or the greatest rescue operation in galactic history would end in failure. It was during this darkest hour that something unexpected happened. The convoy's long-range sensors detected ships approaching from multiple directions, not Drakari vessels, but alien designs that no human had seen before. Sir, reported Communications Officer Kim Hyesu, we're receiving transmissions from multiple, unknown vessels. They're requesting permission to approach. Put them through, Taehyun ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing alien faces unlike anything in human databases. There was a being made of what looked like living energy, another that resembled a giant insect, and a third that seemed to be composed of flowing metal. Admiral Taehyun of the Human Protection Fleet, said the energy being, its voice translated into musical tones that were somehow familiar. I am Speaker of Distant Stars of the Altarian Council. We have been monitoring your situation. And we come to offer assistance. Taehyun felt his chest tighten. Why? The energy being pulsed with what might have been emotion. Because in 300 years of galactic civilization, no species has ever done what you humans have done. You crossed 40 light years to save strangers. You fought an empire to protect the innocent. You revealed your military capabilities to the galaxy for no reason except that it was the right thing to do. Another alien voice joined the conversation, this one from the insectoid creature. I am Hive Mind Unity of the Kitten Collective. Our species has observed the behavior of humans with great interest. You fight not for territory or resources, but for principles. This is unprecedented. What are you proposing? Taehyun asked. Safe. Passage, said the metallic being. I am Flow of Molten Rivers of the Zetari Union. We offer escort through our territory to a system where the Villani can establish a new home. The Drakari will not follow into our space. Taehyun stared at the aliens on his screen. Why would you risk confrontation with the Drakari Empire for refugees? Because, said Speaker of Distant Stars, you have shown us something we thought was impossible. A species that uses violence to protect rather than conquer. A people who will sacrifice their own lives to save strangers. The alien continued, its energy form brightening. For too long, the galaxy has accepted that the strong prey upon the weak. The Drakari Empire enslaves entire worlds because no one is willing to stop them. The Altarian Council observes and regrets, but does not act. But you humans, added Hive Mind Unity, you act. You see injustice and you fight it, regardless of the cost to yourselves. As the alien fleets approached, Taehyun felt the weight of galactic history settling on his shoulders. Humanity had revealed itself to the universe not as conquerors, but as protectors. The galaxy would never look at them the same way again. Admiral, his tactical officer reported, the alien fleets are taking escort positions around our convoy. The Drakari pursuit fleet has stopped advancing. On her research vessel, Dr. Ha received a new transmission from the Zetari Union. They were offering detailed survey data on 17 different worlds that might be suitable for Velan. The new Theros system blazed with the light of 1,000 ships. What had started as humanity's desperate rescue mission had become the largest gathering of alien fleets in galactic history. Representatives from 47 different species hung in space around the blue-green world that would become the Villani's new home. Admiral Lee Jinho stood on the bridge of his flagship, the massive dreadnought Terra's Promise, watching the impossible sight unfold on his tactical displays. His hair had gone completely gray during the journey from the monitoring station to this moment, but his eyes were bright with something he had never expected to feel. Hope. Sir, reported his communications officer, we're receiving requests for communication from species we've never even heard of. The Vylorian Harmony, the Crystalline Confederacy, the Spiral Arm Alliance, they all want to talk to us. What do they want? To understand, came a new voice from behind him. President Moon Soo-jin had arrived on the flagship just hours before, along with a diplomatic team that was completely unprepared for first contact with dozens of alien civilizations simultaneously. Madam President, Jinho said, turning to face Earth's leader. I'm sorry we couldn't wait for proper protocols. Moon smiled, an expression that mixed exhaustion with pride. "Admiral, you and your people have done something that will be remembered for 1,000 years. Protocols can wait." The main screen lit up with incoming transmissions from across the assembled fleet. Alien faces filled the display, beings of crystal and energy, creatures that looked like living plants, entities that existed as pure thought. All of them wanted to understand the species that had crossed the galaxy to save strangers. Captain Koji Wan had been assigned to command the first joint human-alien patrol squadron, a collection of ships from 12 different species working together to establish security around New Theros. It should have been impossible. Different technologies, incompatible communication systems, conflicting tactical doctrines, but somehow it worked. Human vessel determination. "This is Zetari Flowseer, adjusting patrol pattern to grid 77, came the metallic voice of her alien counterpart. "Acknowledged, Flowseer. We'll cover the outer perimeter while your ships monitor the inner system." It was awkward and inefficient, but it was also historic. For the first time in galactic history, ships from different species were working together, not for trade or diplomacy, but for the simple purpose of protecting innocent people. On the surface of New Theros, engineer Lim Suyung was working with Villani crystal shapers and Zetari molecular engineers to build the first permanent settlements. The collaboration was producing technologies that none of the species could have developed alone. "The crystal resonance chambers amplify the Zetari harmonic fields," she explained to Dr. Ha Yeonho as they walked through the construction site. "And our human structural engineering lets us build them larger and more stable than anyone thought possible." Around them, refugees from Theros Prime were already beginning to create something new. Crystal spires rose from the alien soil, but they were different from the cities they had lost. These structures incorporated human architectural principles and Zetari energy distribution systems, creating a unique fusion of three civilizations. "They're not just rebuilding their old world," Ha observed. "They're creating something entirely new." "We all are," Su-Young replied, watching human engineers work alongside crystalline aliens and energy beings. "The galaxy is never going to be the same." But the real transformation was happening in space, where the largest Drakari fleet in their empire's history had arrived to find not just humans, but a united coalition of species standing against them. Drakari Emperor Scar of Ancient Victories commanded his forces from the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest. For 300 years, his empire had expanded unchallenged across the galaxy. Species either submitted to Drakari rule or were destroyed. It was the natural order of things. Now he stared at tactical displays showing over 1,000 alien ships protecting a world full of refugees that should have been his slaves. "This is impossible," he growled to his officers. "How did the humans convince so many species to risk war with our empire?" His intelligence officer, a scarred veteran of a dozen conquests, studied the alien fleet formations. "Emperor, our analysis suggests they didn't convince anyone. These species came voluntarily after observing human behavior during the rescue operation." What behavior could possibly inspire such foolishness? The humans lost 30% of their fleet-saving strangers. Majesty. They gained nothing from the rescue except the knowledge that they had saved innocent lives. This has affected how other species view them. The Emperor's yellow eyes narrowed. "Explain." "Several alien governments have declared that humanity represents something new in galactic civilization, a species that uses military force to protect rather than conquer. They see the humans as heroes." "Heroes," the Emperor spat. "Weakness disguised as virtue." But as he prepared for battle, Scar of Ancient Victories was troubled. In 3 centuries of conquest, he had never faced united opposition. The galaxy's species had always been too proud, too suspicious, too selfish to work together. Humans had somehow changed that in a matter of weeks. On the Terra's promise, President Moon stood before an array of alien faces on the communication screen. Representatives of dozens of species waited to hear from the leader of the people who had started this unprecedented gathering. "Friends," she began, using a translation matrix that converted her words into dozens of alien languages simultaneously. "3 weeks ago, my people heard a cry for help from across the stars. We chose to answer that cry, not because we expected reward, but because it was the right thing to do." She paused, looking at the assembled representatives of galactic civilization. Today, we stand together not as separate species competing for resources, but as civilized beings united in the belief that the strong should protect the weak. But the Drakari Empire will not accept this challenge to their authority, said Speaker of Distant Stars from the Altarian Council. They come with over 200 ships. Even together, we may not be able to stop them. President Moon's expression grew firm. Then we'll make them understand that some things are worth fighting for, regardless of the odds. What followed became known as the Declaration of New Theros, broadcast to every corner of the galaxy as the combined fleet prepared for battle. We are gathered here, Moon's voice echoed across space, not as conquerors or empires, but as people who believe in something larger than ourselves. We believe that intelligence creates responsibility. We believe that those with power have an obligation to protect those without it. The Drakari fleet moved into attack formation, their massive dreadnoughts bristling with weapons designed to reduce planets to rubble. But they found themselves facing something unprecedented. A united galaxy. Yes, we are from worlds that breed. Warriors, Moon continued, her words being translated and retransmitted by alien vessels across the system. But we choose who we fight, and we choose who we protect. Today, we choose to protect those who cannot protect themselves, regardless of what they look like or where they come from. Admiral Jinho watched his tactical displays as alien ships from across the galaxy moved into defensive positions around New Theros. Zatari energy vessels, kitten swarm fighters, Altarian reality benders, and dozens of other ship types formed a barrier between the Drakari and the refugee world. Sir, his tactical officer reported, the alien fleets are requesting permission to integrate with our command structure. They want us to coordinate the defense. Jinho felt the weight of galactic history on his shoulders. Granted, signal all ships, we fight as one. The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. For the first time, species that had been strangers to each other fought side by side, their different technologies and tactics combining in ways that confused and overwhelmed the Drakari fleet. Human ships provided tactical coordination and adaptive strategies. Zatari vessels created energy shields that protected entire formations. Kitten swarm fighters attacked from directions the Drakari hadn't known existed. Altarian reality benders made some enemy ships simply forget how to fight. But the real victory wasn't tactical. It was moral. Emperor, the Drakari intelligence officer reported as his fleet began taking heavy losses, we're receiving surrender demands from species we've never fought. The entire galaxy is watching this battle. So? Majesty, our spies report that 17 Drakari slave worlds have declared independence in the last 6 hours. They're calling it the Liberation, inspired by humanity's example. Emperor Scar of Ancient Victories stared at the tactical display showing his ships being systematically defeated by a coalition that shouldn't have been possible. For 300 years, the galaxy had accepted Drakari conquest because resistance seemed futile. Now humans had shown that united opposition could work. Signal retreat, he commanded, his voice bitter with the taste of first defeat. As the Drakari fleet withdrew from New Theros, something unprecedented happened. Species that had watched from the sidelines began broadcasting their own declarations. The Peaceful Federation announced they would no longer trade with empires that used slave labor. The Silicon Alliance declared their space closed to Drakari vessels. The